Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. I welcome everyone to this space. It's a very important space. Today, we're going to debunk the campaign of disinformation and lies, which is spread by the Indian IT cell and the Indian government. And the fountainhead of that disinformation campaign, and the name of that person everybody knows is Terry Melowski. But I'm going to wait for some time. Let a couple of more people join before we actually start the space. This is going to be a very interesting space. I promise. Anybody who listens to this space will learn a lot more about this terrible, terrible, horrible, tragedy, and how the tracks of the real masterminds and the real culprits and murderers were covered up by the Indian regime and its puppets. So we'll give a minute or two before we actually start. And in the interim, I'll request ਜਿਹੜੇ ਲੋਕ ਜੇ retweet ਕਰ ਸਕਦੇ ਨੇ space ਨੂੰ, please go ahead and retweet this, share with your friends so they can join in and learn about this dastardly act, the Canada's own 9/11, and how the culprits and the main masterminds that we know were involved in this bombing have been shielded through a campaign of disinformation. ਸੋ ਮੈਂ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਬੇਨਤੀ ਕਰਦਾ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਵਿੱਚ ਵੀ ਪਲੀਜ਼ ਇਹਨੂੰ ਥੋੜਾ ਰੀਟਵੀਟ ਕਰੋ ਸਪੇਸ ਨੂੰ ਤਾਂ ਕਿ ਸੰਗਤ ਥੋੜੀ ਹੋਰ ਜੁੜੇ and they don't lose out the initial part, because that's very critical as we talk about what happened in the bombing. And in the interim, ਜੇ ਕੋਈ speaker ਲੈਣਾ ਚਾਹੁੰਦਾ, if anybody wants a speaker, they are welcome to do that. And I can also make this interactive as we go through it. So we'll give it 1 or 2 more minutes before we start. Dr. Molana 72 Hurwale, okay. Okay. The Dr. Molana ji, I'm sorry, I generally don't refuse mics, but like when I go to your profile, most of these, Hindu Tavi handle, the Indian nationalists handle, they create ruckus when they give them a mic. They have nothing to contribute, so unfortunately, I can't give you the mic. If you have a question, you can type it on the live stream. You can chat in, or you can, even respond to the space. And I promise, if it's a intelligent question, you can also send me a DM, and I can, I will answer it. But the question has to be intelligent. Okay, Raman, welcome, Veer. Let me invite you to the speaker as well. Okay, we have a couple of people. We are almost 4 minutes past it. And Raman, if you can take a speaker, that'll be great. Paramjit Paji is here. Paramjit Paji, please take the speaker. I would love to, for you guys to also ask critical questions throughout this presentation as we go through it. Hanji Paramjit Paji, Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Hanji. Paramjit Paji, the space, I don't know whether you got time to listen to my other spaces on Air India 182, but I have, extensively researched this dastardly act and shown with evidence. Like there are reams and reams of evidence of, that it was Indian government which was behind this terrorist act. They were the masterminds. They used some foot soldiers. ਜਿਵੇਂ ਆਪਣੇ ਪੰਥ 'ਚ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਹੀ ਆ, they have used some foot soldiers who were sick, but the real hand was of the Indian government. So there's enough evidence I have shared in those spaces, but today's space is very special in the sense I want to look at, how was government able to get away with it? They were able to get away with it through a very, very sophisticated campaign of disinformation and lies. While all the evidence was out there, which pointed towards Indian government hand, the CC's investigators themselves, who actually investigated the case, have come out either through top newspapers with leaks or directly in public. They have named the fact that there have been ample evidence of Indian government being the mastermind. But even with so much of evidence being there in the public domain, in the Air India trial as well, nobody ever meaningfully got punished. And Indian government keeps using this as a propaganda tool to defame an entire community and kind of saving themselves, still projecting themselves as the victims of Sikh extremism. So, in this space today, I'm going to actually take the example of one of the fountainheads of disinformation on Air India 182, and the name of that person is Terry Molosky. And he has been going around claiming he is this expert on Air India 182 bombing. He has sat through this trial, this inquiry, that commission. But in reality, he has never been sharing information and facts honestly with the public. And he has been waving this tale of this was some kind of a terrorist act engineered by just two people, Parmar and Riyadh, and that's it. And the Indian government is innocent; they have no hand. And how he does this, like how he hides the critical facts from public and goes about creating this narrative which has no legs of its own. I am going to actually take an example, take some of his audio statements, public statements, written tweets, and walk you through how he does this. So I have to admire, you have to give the devil its due so marvelously. How you basically create and spread disinformation. Terry Muluski should be a subject of some research paper. So in today's space, I'm going to open each and every, not all of his lies, but I'm going to take some of his lies, and kind of walk you through with evidence on why they are disinformation. Uh, Paranjit Padi, you want to add anything before we start? हम्म, ठीक है। हाँ जी, हाँ जी। Parvajit Paji, I'm going to stop you a bit. I think you are adding a lot of good points. Today's space, I will love to be in English, and there'll be a Punjabi space as well, same topic. So that, हाँ, sure, sure, sure. Yeah, yeah. And if you can listen as long as you can, and then try to share it, you can always listen because it's a recorded space. And I'm also doing a live stream for the benefit of everyone. People who cannot join the Twitter space, they can watch my live stream as well. If you want to follow me, want to see the slides that I'm going to present and the evidence, the audio visual evidence, you can see it on the live stream, because on the live stream I have a PowerPoint presentation which is going on. And um, and then I just want to, before I want to start, I will request everybody to please, if you can retweet this space so that more people can join. because the whole story I'm going to walk you through steps. So if people join in between, they might not follow the whole kind of sequence of events. So it's great if it will be great if more people join before I start. Ajay, just want to say one thing. You are really doing great job, and your research is really wonderful. I love your way of working. This is the only way we want to convince the people. We should have some real facts and figures, and that's what you're doing. And really, thank you very much for that. And I will go to the research, and I will say whatever time I have, then I will leave it. Thank you. Haji, thank you, Paramjit Paji. Thank you so much for your encouragement. You know, so with that being said, let us quickly dive into today's topic. As you can see on my slide, I have this picture of this person. I won't call him a gentleman, but a person. And on his forehead, I have written lies, disinformation, and foreign interference. That is what Terry Miluski represents. And in this space, but he's good at what he does. He's good at spreading disinformation. There is no doubt, and I will walk you through. I will have you listen to his audio and some of his writings, and then kind of unravel how that is full of disinformation and lies. And hopefully, you will learn how disinformation is pumped into public's mind, how people are manipulated, how public at large is manipulated through these sophisticated liars and disinformation spreaders, who primarily some of them come from media itself. And this guy Terry is a prime example of it. And while we are going through this whole journey for next 1 hour 2 hours, you will see this web of disinformation and how sophisticatedly it is done. With that said, let us move to the next slide. Okay. But before I start, I want to dedicate this presentation. You see a picture of a pregnant lady in this ocean, and I'm going to write a book. The plan is to write a book, and hopefully, this will be the cover of that book. This is the lady who fell from 30,000 feet. She was pregnant with her child. They survived for almost 9 minutes after falling into the ocean. So, this book and this presentation is dedicated to them. With that said, let's move on. So before we start the presentation, right, we need to understand how does media spread disinformation. All the lies that have ever been told or ever will be told fall into three categories. So there are three strategies, okay, a liar will use. These are lies of commission, lies of omission, and lies of influence. So, what is a lie of commission? A lie of commission is a bald faced, flat out lie, untruth. If I say, Sardar Paramjit Singh ji is not in this room or he never listened to this room, that's a lie. It's a bald faced lie. Everybody understands what a lie is. A lie of omission is subtler. Rather than telling the whole truth, the deceiver selectively reveals verifiable facts, yet omits the less convenient ones. For example, consider the teenager who broke curfew. When asked, "Where were you?" if she answers with a verifiable, "I was at the library," which is true, but she just omitted the part about being at the house party that she attended afterwards. So it's a lie of omission where you selectively share information. You share the information that suits you or suits your story that you want to build, but omit which is inconvenient for that story. And then the third one is the most sophisticated lie. It is called the lie of influence. I like to call it a lie of conflation. This is the most complex, and you will see Terry Miluski how he will basically use this like a master. It involves adding extra facts to obfuscate the truth. For example, when somebody asks you, "Did you steal the cookie?" and the thief replies, "Oh, you know that I don't like sweets. Remember that time in the bakery? I don't like sweets." So this is a very sophisticated form of lying, where you basically are adding an extra fact to obfuscate the real truth or take your focus away from there and kind of sow an idea in your mind indirectly that this person, that this is the real truth, while that is not the truth. So you will see when we go through these some of these statements of Terry Milewski and we will debunk it together, and you guys will be with me together through this path. You will see how Terry Milewski basically uses all these three almost like a master, and you have to admire it actually, honestly, when you go through it. Okay, let's before we start debunking him, okay, let's start with Terry Milewski debunking himself, because this was hilarious. And this was hilarious. This happened in the last space that there's the Indian IT cell, I think, account called Sandeep Neil, who regularly will invite people like Terry Milewski to spread, hate and disinformation about sex, especially about Air India 182. And his co-host is generally some another account called Sita Voice, who again is famous for spreading hate against Sikhs and kind of being an Indian IT cell member. And this is the space that they had, in which there's a very unique event that happened. Nanak Singh ji, who comes to our space, he basically asked a question, and Terry Milewski kind of spilled the beans in that answer that he provided. Okay, oops. What happened to my presentation? My presentation is gone. Okay, just hold on. Just one sec. For some reason, I lost my PPT, but not an issue. I have saved a copy, and let me open that copy. Sorry about this small mishap on the PPT, but luckily I had saved a copy, and so we are good to go. Oops. Okay, what's going on here? One sec. Let me share my screen. Window. Okay. Let us see if I can make it bigger. Okay, I'm having a bit of a challenge here with the. Sorry about this. Just one sec, guys. Let me figure this out. Just one sec. Okay, we recovered the presentation, which is nice. Good job. Okay, stop share screen, present, share screen. Okay, seems we are good to go. Okay, great. Yeah, we are again my presentation up and live. Okay, so let us just look at this. Here, this small conversation that happened in that space where Terry Milewski was there and Nanak Singh comes and asks him a question. It's a perfect example why, when you go to a court case, the lawyer will come there and ask you to swear. And they will ask you, do you solemnly affirm this and this is the truth? And you might say, that is so useless. I used to think it's a useless activity. Anybody will lie even after swearing it. But there is a live example that see, but because there's something about when you make a person swear to the truth, and there is a consequence of gonna come if you are later caught lying, and if there's a consequence attached to it, then people will think twice about their statements and will not lie to you, or will basically either not take that oath. So here is a small incident, okay, that happened in that space. So hear it out. What happens?
Terry will debunk their conspiracy theories with real evidence. So he already tweeted he's going to be here. He will come with receipts. So that means he will come with evidence, all the references and everything. It should be a very interesting space. Thanks. Yeah, Clooney, go ahead.
Terry, I will have a very simple yes or no question. Okay? Do you solemnly affirm that the evidence and all the statements that you have given this space are truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Please answer yes or no.
What evidence or statements have I made? I don't know. I can't remember what I said.
Again, let me repeat my question once again, sir, very clearly. Do you solemnly affirm that?
Yeah, I heard you. I heard you, but I can't remember everything I said. I've been talking for more than 2 hours.
Okay, but whatever you have, is it the truth, the whole truth, and nothing?
No, I'm not going to bite. I'm not here to swear oaths at your pleasure. You're just trying to lay. You're trying to lay some trap for me. I'm not interested. Move along.
Yeah, Cooney, this is not your court. You're not a judge. The space.
I'll say that there is an advantage presently. There's no question that.
Okay, so I hope you guys understood now, why in the code they make you take oaths. But anyway, we have somebody who just started interrupting the space. Yeah, Amiji, you were trying to say something.
No, I'm not trying to interpreting your space. I am trying to understand if I am in Gora space or I am in Punjabi space, because your accent was also like little bit na Kathangrez. You know Kathangrez?
Okay, no, thank
so
you.
That,
Okay, sorry for the disruption, guys. We'll continue with the presentation. So you heard this guy refusing to take that oath when he's asked to, and it's not even a court. Okay, the very fact that you basically, this is how you call out a liar. There are tactics in which you can call out a liar depending upon the situation. And Nanak Singh ji did a perfect job. And here this guy, for 2.5 hours he sat in that public space telling lies. He will give two truths, maybe say three things which are true, but basically subtly lying, adding obfuscating, either selectively hiding certain facts or adding certain facts on his own, and basically spreading disinformation. And the moment you ask him, can you swear by that you were telling the truth, this is what you get. So that having said, we'll come back to this once we end the presentation. We will come back to this portion again so that you understand why he actually refused to uh, swear that he was telling the truth, and it will be clear to you um, once we come back to this, once we finish this presentation. Okay, this is the next one. Okay, I have taken a small clip of his from the same space where he goes about defending Ripu Daman Malik. Ripu Daman Malik is the main accused of was the main accused in the Air India 182 trial for the bombing of Kanishka. And he is a known India hand, very popular with the government of India, was funded millions of dollars by government of India, was invited multiple times by government of India, used to meet the raw chief Samant Goel in person along with his family, has met Amit Shah in his last visit, and was also recently assassinated in 2020. So here is the small clip of Terry Milowski defending Ripudaman Malik. I urge you guys to listen to every single word very carefully, okay? And then we are going to analyze. I'm going to walk you through the statement, and I will walk you through where is he committing lies of commission, omission, and conflation. And we will debunk this together, okay? And then I'll share evidence for why I say so. So hear me out. Here we start with his first audio. So here will Terry will start. I'm going to switch it on. Okay, here you go.
Present at the meeting where it appears quite clear that Johal got his grim assignment. And besides that, on the money question which you mentioned about India giving Malik tons of money, well, Malik actually didn't give, India didn't give Malik tons of money. What happened was that about 15 months, if memory serves, before the bombing, when nobody suspected Malik of anything, he was just a successful businessman of Indian origin. The State Bank of India, its local branch in Vancouver, gave him a line of credit, which is not quite the same as giving somebody money. It gives them the right to borrow it up to a certain amount. And he was establishing a school and a business, and he was considered a good investment. And what a coincidence, the local branch manager of the State Bank of India, who authorized the line of credit, was later given a job by Malik to run Malik's own Khalsa Credit Union, as he called it, which he founded sometime after. So at the time that this transaction, this loan, as they call it, which was actually a line of credit, was approved, it was approved not by Indira Gandhi. She wasn't running the State Bank of India branch in Vancouver, British Columbia. It was approved by a local manager, and it was not a gift, it was a loan, and it was long before the Air India bombing, when there was no reason to suspect Malik of being anything but a successful businessman. In fact, his activities on behalf of the Baba Khalsa were so little known that that evidence was never produced at trial when he was eventually accused of involvement in the bombing of Air India. It was never that never came up because the prosecutors didn't have that information. Most Canadians found out about it much later, after the acquittals came down, after the trial was over, in a report on the CBC, when we found out about the money, and we found out about the millions that Malik had pledged to the cause, and the $10,000 checks that he was giving to Parmar and to the Baba Khalsa. So it's a complicated story, and I apologize for making it rather long, but that's what happened.
Okay, great. Marvelous. I have to say, once I hear this, like, wow, this is how you will tell a story. Okay. So the next slide, if you see, there are a couple of things he's doing here. If you heard the statement closely and you followed every word, there's a story he's building. Okay. This is the story. Yes, Malik got $2 million, but it was 15 months before. 15 months. The emphasis on 15 months before the bombing. The inference being it is not connected with the bombing somehow. So he was funded 15 months before he was given. And then he uses the word, no one suspected Malik at that time. Okay. This is called adding a fact on his own. He's basically telling you, look, nobody suspected Malik, because you are not going to go and check if somebody suspected Malik or not at that time. You're not going to check. He's omitted a lot of facts about Malik, what was publicly known at that point in time, and he just throw it out a new fact for you. No one suspected Malik, so you have to believe him because you're not going to go and check. But we will come to this, and I'll show you why everybody suspected Malik at that point in time. And then he uses the word good businessman. Okay, this is called the lie of conflation. He's a businessman, so he's added another fact, but he's just added another thing to it called good. So he's a good businessman. So what could he be? He's not a terrorist. And then he said it's just a line of credit and not a loan or a money. This is called. This is I would say this is almost a lie of commission, because the line of credit is even more egregious than a loan. A loan is a one-time activity. You take a loan, you return a loan, done it. You need money, you have to come back again. A line of credit, you can keep drawing, keep giving it back, keep drawing, keep giving it back. You can basically draw $10 million on the $2 million credit line of credit. And so it's a way different level we are talking about here. But he basically tries to kind of make this a somehow kind of sow this idea in your mind that it was not a loan, it was not, money was not given, he was just given line of credit. He might have drawn that money, he might not have drawn that money. And then he uses the word, he was, if you remember, he used the word, he was establishing a school, so it was a good investment. Basically, he's kind of laying out another fact, letting you make the association that this money was for actually the school that he was building. This is another a lie of commission, because that's untrue. The line of credit was against his clothing business. It had nothing to do with school. But he just lays that fact out, he was establishing a school, it was a good investment. So the manager, okay, the emphasis on manager, as if he knew the name of the manager, okay? There is some manager, not the bank. He doesn't mention the bank, and we'll talk about why he does not mention the bank. And the manager gave this loan, and apparently the manager was later, kind of given job by Malik. So letting you make an inference that this was some kind of a quid pro quo at a lower level, wherein Malik bribed some lower level manager to get a $2 million line of credit. And it obviously made sense because he was building a school and it was a good investment. And then he uses another term called transaction. Okay, it was a transaction, kind of seeding an idea in your mind that this was a one time event, that Malik went, got a line of credit, everything ended 15 months before everything started. Now, this is what he has built that illusion for you. But I will talk to you about the reality of this line of credit, how long it continued, how much and how Malik withdrew that money and where he was spending that money, and how that was actually publicly known. He has omitted all those facts. He has not talked about the fact that Malik was actually funding Parmar starting from the 1982, and it was a public knowledge. He does not disclose to you the fact that this entire $2 million loan of credit was against a business which was not even more than $50,000 at that point in time, which was a clothing and small trinket selling business to get like small bangles from India and sell them in a small shop in Surrey. He doesn't tell you that. And he doesn't tell you one thing about, he talks about the manager, okay? As if he doesn't tell you that the bank was a nationalized bank. India did not have private sector banking. In India was a socialist country at that point in time, and the banks were all government controlled. So it was a government of India employee who gave Malik that $2 million loan. It was the government of India who gave Malik that 2 million, not the employee. And it was not. And then he hides that fact of line of credit and how long it went on. And then the last thing, then he basically ends his whole illusion masterfully. If you remember what he said in the last line was, okay, even if this was true, even if his money was given and he was using that to fund Babbar Khalsa, and then he deliberately says $10,000 worth of check. So what he's saying is that to Babbar Khalsa, he only gave, to Parmar, he only gave $10,000, but that's not true. It was hundreds of thousands of dollars, and we'll talk about all that trail. And then he says, oh, and all this money trail, all the thing that was going on, that Dipu Damanwalik was paying to Babar Khalsa and Parmar and Bagdi and Rayat and all these guys, we came to know only after the trial. And you know why we came to know only after the trial? Because in the trial, this was not made a major issue. Again, this is a total lie, a blank face lie, because nobody, he does not expect people to go and check what was happening before the trial. And whether this money trail was known or not, it's going to be very difficult for somebody to prove. But I will prove it to you today, that it was public knowledge, that this money trial was a public knowledge even before the bombing, leave alone after the bombing and up to the period of trial. Trial started in 2001, ended in 2005, and he's basically claiming no one knew about this money trail. Oh, and we came to know only after that trial. Okay, so these are the statements he made. Now let's debunk them. And if you're following me on the presentation on live stream, here it is. Okay, so Malik's financing of Babur Khalsa, which is basically Bagdi and Parmar at that point in time, they formed the Canadian faction of Babur Khalsa, was well known. In 1982 to 1989, Ripu Daman Malik supported Parmar's family financially. He is the one who paid in 1983 when Talvinder Parmar was caught in Germany. All the legal bills for the bail for Parmar in Germany was paid by Ripudaman Malik, and this was a publicly known fact. He was the one who actually financed all of Parmar's real estate projects between 1982 to 1987. And we know that, and we'll talk about how much money was given. I have some screenshots I'll show in the next one. Okay, even if we assume that till 1984 the Indian government was not aware, and Talvinder Parmar had an Interpol notice against him in 1983, due to which he was caught in Germany, and this is the guy who pays the legal bill through his official accounts, and then this guy Terry Molesky is claiming, oh, like Indian government didn't knew who paid Parmar's bill. Indian government was so innocent and so sleeping at the job. And then and again we know in 1985, Sardar Tara Singh here had written an article which basically blamed Malik and Bagdi and Parmar and all these guys to be kind of in hand in glove with the Indian government, due to which there was a court case filed for defamation by Malik with Parmar and Bagdi against Tara Singh here in 1985 itself. So that means that this was public knowledge. There is a court case going on, okay? And we also know that when Malik was given this loan, $2 million loan in 1984, he was also not being given a visa by the Indian government to visit India at that point in time, citing, that he's funding Babur Khalsa. So what is the strange thing going on? And we also know that this was public knowledge that Malik was financing it, because in 1986, assume all this thing was hidden. The Indian government was sleeping. Indian government officials were not reading any newspaper, or they were like exceptionally sleepy at the job. In 1986, Globe and Mail, the highest selling newspaper in Canada, published a 3-part series, which later got converted into the book called Soft Target, in which they basically laid out that Ripudaman Malik is the financer. He is the one who got the money. He is the one who is financing these guys and basically creating foot soldiers that will be used for certain violent activities within Canada. Okay, let us assume that the Indian government did not read this. All this while, the line of credit is live. Okay, the 2 million line of credit we started in 1984. All this is going on, and Malik is constantly trying on that. They didn't close the line of credit. In 1987, Malik financed many of Parmar's real estate projects, but in 1987, these were one of the biggest ones. It's called a Winthrop real estate project, which Malik again financed in 1987. Okay, and the line of credit is going on. Line of credit has not stopped in 1987, and we'll go through that evidence. In 1988, the book Soft Target is published by the two most credible journalists in Canada who work for Globe and Mail and Toronto Star, the two highest selling dailies, in which they directly quote CIS's agents, who basically detail out how Malik is the guy who organized all the financing. What is the role other people like the foot soldiers like Bagdi, Parmar, Rayat, and what role they are playing, and that Indian government is behind all this, and they ran the entire operation, blah blah blah. The whole conspiracy is laid out as is in that book Soft Target. And even after that, all that evidence that they basically laid out in the book Soft Target is proven in the Air India 182 trial, because it is basically the same case which comes out in the Air India 182 trial in year 2001. So even in this book, they lay out fully well the role of Malik and how he is financing all this. But Malik's financing is not stopped. Government of India keeps the line of credit open. Okay, and here is Terry Molesky, who's claiming nobody knew, the public had no knowledge. Okay, But obviously, public was not reading Toronto Star. Public was not reading Globe and Mail. Public was not reading the soft target book. And then we know that the debenture was discharged. This line of credit debenture, which was issued or discharged in 1988, and after the book soft target came out. And then Malik, uh, after that, was there any other association with State Bank of India? We don't know. We don't know whether it fully stopped. Okay, so that's one. The other associations that Malik had with Government of India, which selectively now, when he's talking about Malik, if you see, he conveniently never talks about this. Terry Molosky will never talk about it, even about the loan. He talks about only once expose this information in public, or when I put it up, or somebody else puts it up, then only he will answer. Otherwise, he will never even utter the name Ripu Daman Malik from his mouth. The biggest act of omission. The guy who is the main accused in the Air India 182 trial, that is because he wants to keep the focus on the guy who has been killed and now cannot defend himself. That is Talvinder Parmar. And basically just pin it on Parmar, pin it on Rayat, who has been given some, some kind of a, what I call token punishment, and then basically case solved. Nobody else should be we shouldn't be going further than that. If the case is solved, these two guys did it, that's it. So other association of Government of India that he hides and selectively does not kind of talk about is that in 1993 Malik went to India for full 1 year. Between 1984 and 1999, Malik maintained a lavish office in Delhi. He doesn't talk about it. He doesn't even inquire about it. That's of no interest to him. In 2019, Malik was invited to India by Government of India. Malik was on no-fly list. He couldn't have taken that flight to India, but Government of India intervened with the US government and Canadian government and asked them, pressurized them to take Malik off the no-fly list. And moment Malik lands in India, he meets the Home Minister, he meets the Raw Chief Samant Goel. And how do we know? There is an interview that Malik does on a main Punjabi news channel in India, and we have the video of that, and I'll bring that out, where his brother basically spills the beans while talking. The brother, Malik's brother, obviously he's not trained as good as Malik. He basically starts talking about, oh, how good Mr. Samant Goel is. Samant Goel is the intelligence chief of India, okay? How both he and his brother met him and how good supportive he has been of us, blah, blah, blah. How he took us off no-fly list, etc. Otherwise, we would not have been able to travel. But this guy, Terry Molosky, is going to hide these facts from you. He's not going to talk to you about these, because that links Ripu Daman Malik to Government of India. Ripu Daman Malik's association with Indian government is undeniable. So he should be hidden. We just cannot talk about it. But how masterfully, he defends when the topic comes up. You admire, how this guy will pick up selective facts and kind of try to defend that relationship. Anyways, this is the exact. If you are watching my live stream, this is an exact extract I'm showing from the court document. This is from the court, okay, which talks about this $2 million demand debenture, which was held by his business and it was discharged. And here, if you remember, what was Terry Molosky saying in that video? Oh, we came to know only after the trial has ended. But in the trial itself, it was discussed. And there is evidence right in front of your eyes. Here is what more public knew, and I'm going to read some of the thing which Globe and Mail and Toronto Star had published as three-part series in 1986, and also the same information was published as part of the book Soft Target. And I'm going to read verbatim, okay? Parmar's real estate acumen can only be attributed in part to his friendship with Malik. In 1988, Parmar was developing a multi-million-dollar mini subdivision. His own opulent home in Burnaby had been fully paid for and was up for sale, and the Parmar family moved into the largest house of a four-house subdivision in Vancouver known as Worthington Place. The three other houses were listed for sale at prices ranging from $259,000 to $339,000. Parmar's brother defended the real estate dealings by arguing that Parmar would have more time to work for the six if he was financially comfortable. So all this wealth that Parmar had built up was primarily through the financing that Ripudaman Malik had provided to him. Otherwise, Parmar was a pauper to start off with. To help with the Worthington Place development, Malik provided $190K through the Khasa Credit Union in December 1987, using Parmar's Burnby home as backing. The loan was paid off in 6 months. Okay, who paid off? God knows. The Delta Credit Union also provided $530K for the development. That loan was guaranteed by Malik, who said in an interview in January 1988, Parmar is a very clever man. He'll be successful in whatever he does. Okay, here is the fact which Globe and Mail spilled, that actually when Malik was in 1984 and 85, Malik was actually denied visa by Indian government. So even in 1984, 1985, Indian government knew that Malik was the one who was, paying for all the legal bills of their most wanted terrorist, Talvinder Parmar. So this is early 1984, and I'm just reading verbatim from what Globe and Mail wrote. In early 1984, when Malik's dealing with the bank began, the conflict had reached its peak with killings and bombings and random arrest, all leading to the assault on the Golden Temple by the Indian Army. Malik also said it would cost him too much to change banks at this stage. At the same time, he considered he had been described by the Indian consulate in Vancouver as a security threat and was told that he would not be granted a visa to visit India. The Papillon Company to this day maintains an office in New Delhi. India was refusing him a visa on the grounds of security, yet its own bank, government bank, okay, not a private bank, there was no concept of private banking in India, own bank, aware that a portion of Malik's earnings went to help the Babar Khalsa and Parmar, maintained a $2 million credit line of credit for him. Okay. So the government of India was denying him visa from 1984 onwards itself, while at the same time giving him a $2 million credit line. So to say that all this was not public knowledge is bullshit. Like basically, Terry Molesky is lying in your face and just hoping that nobody will go and check that all this information was available in public. It's important, why he uses the word a manager. He was establishing a school. He's because he knows that the Western audience, here he's trying to fool the Western audience and maybe the youth who does not know what India was like in 1980s. Today India has private banks, so it is possible you can go to a private banker, kind of get a loan. But 1980s India was not like that. India was a Soviet style centralized economy where your even our bread used to come from a government company. The car used to be made by the government. That's okay. The Maruti came very late. Previously it was just Hindustan machines. Everything was government owned, and the banks were nationalized. All the banks were government of India entity. So the State Bank of India was not an ordinary private bank. Every employee there worked for the Indian government. And he does not mention, he kind of hides that fact from you and tries to take you to this thing. There was this manager. He doesn't name that manager. He doesn't say, how does he know that, that manager got a job, etc. But he basically, and then he tries to hide the State Bank of India, basically the government entity. And then he says a good investment because he was establishing a school. Because obviously, if he mentions the cloth shop, people will ask, how come a cloth shop get a loan of $2 million? In that time, the cloth shop was probably not more than $100,000. Why would they get a $2 million? Not a clothes shop; it's a trinket shop. Not even clothes. It was he was selling small. You were selling small stuff that you get. Maybe a larger version of a ready, basically. And giving them $2 million by the government of India is a good investment. So that's why he bought in this idea, because Malik was establishing a school, as if that loan line of credit was for school, not for his small trinket shop. You see how masterfully he created that illusion. We'll go back to his statement again. Okay, now let's listen to this. After some of these facts that he omitted, just listen to his statement again, okay? And kind of see that in these facts that I just presented.
Present at the meeting where it appears quite clear that Johal got his grim assignment. And besides that, On the money question which you mentioned about India giving Malik tons of money, well, uh, Malik actually didn't give, India didn't give Malik tons of money. What happened was that about 15 months, if memory serves, before the bombing, when nobody suspected Malik of anything, he was just a successful businessman of Indian origin. Uh, the State Bank of India, uh, its local branch in Vancouver, gave him a line of credit, which is not quite the same as giving somebody money. It gives them the right to borrow it up to a certain amount. And he was establishing a school and a business, and he was considered a good investment. And what a coincidence, the local branch manager of the State Bank of India, who authorized the line of credit, was later given a job by Malik to run Malik's own Khalsa Credit Union, as he called it, which he founded sometime after. So at the time that this transaction, this loan, as they call it, which was actually a line of credit, was approved, it was approved not by Indira Gandhi. She wasn't running the State Bank of India branch in Vancouver, British Columbia. It was approved by a local manager, and it was not a gift, it was a loan, and it was long before the Air India bombing, when there was no reason to suspect Malik of being anything but a successful businessman. In fact, his activities on behalf of the Baba Khalsa were so little known that that evidence was never produced at trial when he was eventually accused of involvement in the bombing of Air India. It was that never came up because the prosecutors didn't have that information. Most Canadians found out about it much later, after the acquittals came down, after the trial was over, in a report on the CBC, when we found out about the money, and we found out about the millions that Malik had pledged to the cause, and the $10,000 checks that he was giving to Parmar and to the Baba Khalsa. So it's a complicated story, and I apologize for making it rather.
Okay. Rola, you heard that? We came to know about this $2 million only after the court trial. Otherwise, we were like totally obvious. The public didn't knew. Do you buy that?
No, it's not possible. I think they had all this at the public already before even the trial started. So I have a question why I came up on mic. Harjeet, thank you for the mic first.
Mhm.
And sorry, I was having my run. I think the whole case needs a re-inquiry, right? It has to be initiated probably by the Justice Department, the State Justice Department of Canada. And that can only happen if there's a parliamentary committee that approves it.
No, we're going there. Rola, we are going there. Next one is that. Next one is that. Just hold on for some time. That's exactly where we are going.
I'm running. Sorry, I'm sure.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah. Exactly. That's where we are going. Okay. What is needed, and we'll talk about that public inquiry and what a sham it was. Okay, and we'll catch Terry telling another lie regarding that spreading and after you know this, after you look, Terry could not be ignorant about these things. These lies are not ignorant lies. Okay, he is way more knowledgeable about this. He knew exactly, if he has read even 10% of the court documents, the court case, or the John Major inquiry, or the Globe and Mail, he was an average reader of a newspaper. People knew that Ripudaman Malik's financial ties. So the question was obvious, like why was government of India giving? And he never asked that question. And in fact, if you ask that question, he's going to run you down and defend. Oh, no. Indira Gandhi somehow had nothing to do with it. Some local manager did something. Oh, why are you so eager to defend government of India on this one? So I hope ceases now with their new empowered a law looks at this more critically, and does something about this disinformation spreader. These are not misguided, ill-informed utterances of an old man. These are very well thought out lies, very well thought out, told in a very sophisticated fashion to basically hide the footsteps and the handprints of government of India on in the biggest terror attack on Canadian soil. And maybe you will get a lot more leads if you follow Terry Maluski. Anyways, let's just continue on. We listen to this, and here are some of the written tweets I'm showing on my live stream, where he will go on and try to obfuscate the issue of Malik's financing. Here is, I asked him this question 10 times. He would never even utter the name of, Malik, and why Malik is being featured by the Indian government. He will never bring, ideally, as a journalist, he should bring it out to the fact that why is the main accused of the bombing being invited by the government of India to India and given a VIP treatment. He will never, rather than doing that, questioning that, he will actually attack people who will raise that issue. Okay, so here is my tweet, if you guys can see. Also, any comments on this? This is the 10th time I'm asking the same question. And my question is again, dead silence from CBC Terry on the question why Indian government is feeding the Air India 182 bomber Malik. The bomber that government of India funded millions of dollars, then pressurized USA, Canada to remove him from no-fly list, have him fly freely to India and meet high officials. And you know what is Terry Maluski's response? Here it is verbatim. Yes, a scandalous silence from Terry on why the Indian government blah blah. Oh, grow up. Has it really not occurred to you that it's not my job to explain the Indian government's actions to you? Go ask the Indian government why it does what it does. How the hell do I know? So that is the response of the so-called expert on Air India 182 bombing, who said 30 years he has spent reading through multiple court inquiries and all. That is his response. That why the main accused of Air India 182 bombing is funded money and is also treated like a VIP by the government of India, the very government who has been claiming that, oh, these are the terrorists who have bombed our plane. The very government against which the CC's agents have made public statements and allegations that the Indian government was behind the terror attack. So Terry said, "Look, this is not my job. Go ahead." So okay, and so this was a pitiful, honestly, answer. Here, probably he let his art of disinformation, he let his guard down. He shouldn't have responded this way. I expected more mastery from this liar. And there are some other, tweets I have on the screen, uh, where he's defending pathetically, because I kind of riled up his anger, and he didn't knew this happened last year, and he didn't know how to respond. So he basically let his guard down, where he ended up publicly trying to defend Malik. Okay, so I'll just read up. So prosecutors provided evidence that clearly showed Malik had booked tickets. Wrong again. Again, he's lying. The prosecutors provided evidence which showed that Malik is the one who booked ticket. But anyways, the only witness to say Malik claimed he did that was dismissed by the judge as not believable. He called her evidence a fabrication. Okay, so he's basically saying that all the evidence against Malik was dismissed by the judge, so it was obviously false. Okay, and then you should watch one of my spaces where I show all the evidence that was there, and then says, uh, I have been misleading the public, you say, by hiding your huge discoveries, such as Indian millions going to the late Ripudaman Malik. The millions you can't even show exist. So this was last year, okay? So last year, he first, when I brought this up, that this money was paid to him, he even rushed it aside, saying this didn't even happen. But later, when I did multiple spaces and I brought out the evidence, and then he was like, "Oh no, no, it was there, but it was before the bombing and blah blah blah," and some pathetic way to kind of obfuscate the issue. But he started off by just denying that there was some $2 million loan. Okay, let's move to the next lie. Okay, and I want you guys to hear every single word he says in this particular small audio tape, and then we are going to debunk this together, okay, and understand how he's kind of waving another fanciful tale for you guys to take your ears and eyes away from the real mastermind. That is the end goal. Here you go, the second one.
Incoming CPF flight from Vancouver, which departed a little after the one that flew the other way around the world. The idea being, as you may know, that there should be ultimately two simultaneous explosions of Indian aircraft on opposite sides of the world. A spectacular terrorist atrocity. And as they rolled the bag, it may have been jostled, it exploded. And we know they were sensitive. We know that I've spoken years ago to a gentleman who was next in line behind the guy who checked in the other bomb, the one going to Toronto and ended up on flight 182. And he saw the guy in front of him who checked in the bomb and remembered painfully how this guy didn't pick up his bag and move it as the line moved towards the check-in clerk. He pushed it gently with his toe forward, inch by inch, towards the check-in clerk's desk. He was very careful with this bag, this gentleman told me. So we know that there was they knew that this was a homemade bomb. Second of all, what did those shards of evidence, what did they show? Well, they came up with the exact model and serial number of the Sanyo tuner that was used as a timing device inside the suitcase. And that Sanyo tuner was sold on Vancouver Island to Inderjit Singh Rayat. He put it on his credit card. We're not talking about master criminals here, right? These guys are pretty dumb. And he was spectacularly dumb in that respect. So they go and have a look at, the police went along to have a look at Rayat's workshop. Guess what? He has the box for the Gurry tuner. He has a can of liquid fire that was used as an accelerant in the Narita bomb. He has a roll of a particular kind of green tape that he used to bundle up the sticks of dynamite, and so on. They were able to identify what the components of the bomb were, and they dovetailed perfectly with components that were found, bought by Inderjit Rayat, such as the tuner, and the other components in his workshop. So that's what you asked for evidence. Well, that's pretty good. They were able to show that Rayat built that bomb, and they were able to prove it. They proved it in court. He went to trial, and he went for prison, but based on that evidence. That's not bad. Then I'll mention a couple of other things, perhaps. That's pretty good, I think. It means that we know that Rayat built the bomb. Now, we also know, as a result of that those bombs, the ones that he built, were built for Parmar. Who told him to build these bombs? He said it was Parmar, and we know that's true. We don't have to rely on Rayat's confession, in other words, because one day, during the course of the surveillance, prior to the bombing, by CSIS officers, the Canadian Security Intelligence Service, it was in its infancy, but it was doing an okay job on that day. They followed Parmar because they were suspicious of his activities, and India had flagged him as a dangerous terrorist. They were apparently right, because here he was, got on the ferry from Vancouver to go over to Vancouver Island. Where did he go? He went over to Inderjit Rayat's house. And together they drive down the highway into the woods. And the CSIS officers follow them. And the two, with another man who we have not identified, went into the woods, and there's a loud explosion. And the one CSIS officer is sitting at the wheel of the car, and she's terrified. She ducks down behind the wheel. She didn't know what was going on. And the other guy was hiding behind a tree, said it scared the hell out of me. It was quite a bang. That explosion was a test of the detonation system, as it later turned out. So we don't have to rely upon Rayat's confession that he was working for Parmar and building the bomb. We saw it with our own eyes, and these people testified under oath. The officers, the surveillance officers, testified under oath about it. So we've more or less solved the case now. There's much more, but those facts tell you that we know for certain, as a result of all of this evidence, that the bombs that blew up that day on both Narita and 182 were built by Rayat for Parmar. We also have evidence, and I'll talk about this more if you want, but just very briefly.
Okay, great. I apologize for the poor audio quality on this clip. I hope you were able to listen to the initial part as well, because I know the sound was a bit low. In case anybody had difficulty, let me know. Okay, So this is the fanciful story, okay, he's trying to build. There's a couple of things he's emphasizing. He's on his own. He has added a term called homemade bomb. Nowhere in any trial, in any inquiry, it is admitted that it was a homemade bomb. In fact, in the Air India 1H2 trial, none of the investigators, the air crash investigators, there were three teams. The most expensive aircraft uh, crash investigation ever in human history. None of the three investigation teams have said they are conclusively going to commit that it was a bomb which brought it down. They are saying there's a strong inference that there was a blast. Especially another fact that he is hiding from you. None of the wreckage that was recovered for Air India 1H2 bombing, they could not trace any explosive residue. That's fine, they said, because we only recovered 5% of the wreckage. But there was no residue, okay? But here is the term that this guy is adding on his own homemade bomb. And why? Because it is important for the bomb to be homemade so that we can conclusively say that it was some kind of a poor guy like Rayat who didn't knew much about explosive. He kind of conjured up some kind of a device which obviously exploded due to jostling. Okay, if you remember, he was saying there was some kind of a jostling that happened between the on that bag by the two handlers, which caused the bomb to go off. No such claim is made by any investigator anywhere. This is a fanciful story. This is what I call, the third. You just add your own fact and interpretation on top of when there is actually no evidence to even suggest that. Then, if you remember, when he's talking about the components of the bomb, he'll give you certain facts which are true. In the Narita bomb, the thing that exploded, the Sanyo tuner that was bought by Rayat. The components that were used, the clock, the tape was traced to Rayat's garage. That is true. Rayat bought it. But what he added there was including the dynamite. But what he is not showing you, and then he said all the chemical analysis proved these were components which Rayat bought. That's true. But everything in the chemical analysis proved that this was bought by Rayat except the dynamite. The explosive that was used for the Narita bombing, its chemical composition was never matched to, actually did not match with some dynamite sticks that Rayat had, whose residue was found within a plastic packet in his garage. That was some dynamite sticks that Rayat had borrowed from a friend, saying that he had interest in explosives and he wanted to test them out. That had a different chemical composition than that. But he's not going to tell you that fact. He's going to say, including the dynamite, kind of conclusively saying that it was the dynamite that Rayat bought. Okay. Another thing that he's hiding when he's talking about those components is that Rayat did not give those components, and he basically says these were the two guys. He built a bomb and gave it to Parmar. Incorrect. What he's hiding in that whole statement is that when Rayat bought those components, the guy who was with him to buy those components was this third person, Mr. X, who was never identified. And Rayat gave all those components to this third person. And we know that third person exists. It is not a fabrication because CC was following all three of them. They saw Rayat with this guy going to that. Rayat and Parmar were both under surveillance. And Rayat is the one who goes to this shop to buy the tuner. And he hands over with this third person called Mr. X, whom he handed over the tuner and those components. But all that facts are inconvenient facts to the theory that Terry wants to build here, as if Rayat built a homemade bomb with using dynamite, which is now mapped. He's falsely kind of making an assumption that dynamite was mapped to the map, which was the dynamite which was used in Narita. And then he's also hiding from you the fact that what brought down Air India 182, there are still open questions on that. Anyways, we'll talk about those things a bit more detail as we go into Rayat's conviction. And then he creates this illusion that this was all conclusively proven and Rayat built the bomb and the court basically then convicted him. And then he says that explosion that happened, he talks about an incident. This incident happened on 4th June 1985. Parmar and Rayat were both under the surveillance of CSIS because Indian government was complaining these guys are doing something wrong. These guys were actually being handled by this third guy, Mr. X, who was never traced. And that is the most mysterious character in this entire thing. This Mr. X actually goes with these three guys to Duncan Forest. There, these two CC agents follow them, 4th of June, okay? And all this while Parmar has been under constant surveillance. Okay, nothing incriminating is found in all the audio. His phones are being tapped, everything is tapped. They don't find anything incriminating in any of those conversations. And this whole explosion thing that he's talking about is again a red herring, because they were tailed in that explosion experiment. What happened was Parmar was telling Rayat he wants to go to India to blow up, build some bombs so he can use there. These guys go there, and the CC agent who's following, he hears a loud explosion. But the CC agent characterizes that explosion not as a bomb. He is an experienced hunter, and he says he's fully confident it was not more than a rifle which kind of goes off. Okay, it was not, and you hear that what this guy was trying to put up, as if like some big bomb have exploded. Okay, and then he's kind of giving a impression, false impression to you, as if we know for certain that bomb is the one which blew up Air India 182. But that, and how do we know that it, after that, and we'll talk about what happened in that forest, was after Pramar and Rayat left from there was three CC's team which searched that forest exact spot where that explosion happened, and they couldn't find any trace of a large explosion. What they found of trace of was basically a very very small novice kind of a bomb made using smokeless powder that you use for filling your bullets at your home. And I will talk about that in more detail. All that information he's hiding, he doesn't want to talk about that because that is going to be inconvenient to his theory. But that's not what happened in the court, and that is why Rayat was never punished very heavily. He only got 5 years for Air India 1 and manslaughter, not for participation in conspiracy. He was punished for manslaughter, that is unknowingly acquiring certain things which eventually became part of a bomb which killed a lot of people. That is why he was only given 5 years for Air India 182 and 10 years for Narita. But I'll show you. This is what, if you are watching my live stream, remember the words that this guy Terry was saying. Oh, when CC's was falling in that forest, there was this huge blast, and the one of the agents actually jumped and hid behind a tree because this blast was so big. But this is what the exact RCMP report says. Okay, I'm going to read it. The following is an attempt to trace exactly what information was shared with the RCMP. This is from John Major inquiry report, the left one that I'm reading. Early on the morning of June 5th, the CC surveillance team manager contacted RCMP Corporal Henderson by phone to advise him of what the team had witnessed in Duncan. He indicated that CCs were conducting surveillance of some of their targets who met Rayat the previous day. It was then stated that Rayat and the target went up a logging road and a gunshot was heard. The two parties were then followed back into Duncan. The CC member requested that RCMP supply blah blah blah. Okay, so they heard a gunshot, and this is Low. Low was the CC's agent who followed, and this is how he described the sound. Okay, a loud explosion or bang or rifle shot or whatever. I couldn't describe it at that time. I thought, basically saying at that time, I thought it was a rifle shot at that time. I thought it was a rifle shot at the time. And it scared the hell out of me, to be honest with you. And I was hiding behind a tree and climbed further down behind the tree because I didn't know what was going on. Okay, now it scared the hell out of him, not because of the sound. What he's saying is, he thought it is a gunshot. Basically, somebody is shooting a gun at him. That is why he hid behind a tree. Okay. Now, this act, Terry is using kind of a select. He's not telling you that why he hid behind a tree. He was hiding behind the tree because he thought there's a gunshot, and that gunshot is basically maybe Parmar or Rayat are now shooting back at him. They have figured out that I'm tailing them. But you imagine now, remember how Terry was portraying it. He was portraying it as if a huge blast went off in that forest. And due to the sound of that blast, this guy hid behind the tree. No, that's not true. He hid behind the tree because he thought it's a gunshot. And he was an experienced And the last line is shortly thereafter, Lowe returned to the vehicle. He was an experienced hunter and identified the sound as a rifle report, the sound of a rifle being fired, because the sound was not huge. And I will tell you why that blast sounded like a rifle, because it was actually using the smokeless powder. And we'll talk about how that, what you call so-called bomb that Terry is talking about, that bombed on a plane, that how these guys were actually not even good enough to build more than a decent firecracker. That was the type of bomb they were testing, and we'll talk about that bomb that they tested in next slide. This is that dreaded bomb that Terry was Terry was describing, and this is all coming from what CSIS saw and what Rayad said he tested. Okay, both of them are, this combined information is there. So Rayad said he bought basically a cardboard pipe in which he pumped in smokeless powder, which is used for pistols and shotgun, the powder which was found in his home. And then he bought a 12-volt battery. Okay, 12-volt battery. If anybody has worked with a car battery, that is the battery he used. The 12-volt battery itself, if you guys are aware, is is roughly around 100 pounds. Okay, so you can't fit it in a briefcase on an aircraft. So these idiots were basically so novice. They took a cardboard box, put a lot of gunpowder, smokeless powder, put a blasting cap on top of it, and then just took the wire and attached to the negative and positive pole of the battery, which sent. They didn't even took a blasting cap. They actually used a bulb, okay, electrical bulb, and the bulb was kind of put inside that gunpowder, because the bulb will heat up and the filament after some time, 10 seconds, will blow up the. That was the kind of firecracker these guys were testing. And then how do we know? This is what Rayat described. They saw the battery, but this is what they found when the three teams of CSIS actually went next day. This explosion was tested. Three teams went 3 days, and what they found, that they couldn't actually find even any sign of the explosion, because this bomb was so weak. They couldn't find, first team couldn't find anything, the second team couldn't find anything, and then the third team actually found a cardboard piece. Okay, which was exactly what Rayat described, that this is how what I basically did it. I took a cardboard and put a lot of smokeless powder in it, and then basically put a bulb in it, and then basically ignited it by just heating the bulb using the battery. So this is that dreaded bomb, which and now suddenly this Stone Age bomb, these guys who can't build, whose only capability is to build this kind of a bomb. Imagine suddenly they have got the capability. This happened on 4th June 1985. Between 4th June to 22nd June 1985, a matter of 18 days, Rayat, who couldn't even build a decent firecracker. If I tell him couple of guys living in my neighborhood to build it, they'll do a better job than Rayat. Okay, he's an illiterate, almost an illiterate mechanic. Now suddenly that guy has transformed himself into somebody who could build a bomb which can go into a Sanyo stereo with a timer in it, with dynamite in it, and then it can blow up at a specific time and with so much force that it can blow up a Boeing big large passenger aircraft out of thin air. And it's not easy to blow up an aircraft. Okay, you can imagine how much force it needs to actually bring an aircraft down. You'll be surprised. And there are many times that there have been bombs on aircraft has a gaping hole and still it is able to land. Anyways, so but this is what if you hear Terry Miluski, he was laying out Rayat. It was conclusively proven that Rayat built this bomb, and then it was for Parmar, and then he handed it over to Parmar, as if totally forgetting that Rayat bought only components, out of which dynamite was never traced to him, the one which was used in Narita, plus these components he didn't hand it to Parmar. He handed over these components to this another guy who Cicero also saw, which is Mr. X. And this is what about that this view that you see, the portion from that the Tokyo Conviction, where it is exactly written that I will read it. Dr. Beveridge determined conclusively that the explosive material used in the bomb was dynamite. However, in the explosive residues, he detected the traces of barium sulfate, which is a compound present in some kinds of dynamite, but which was not present in the dynamite found in the Rayas home and may not have been in the dynamite he obtained. So he conveniently hides this fact. And it is because of this. This is the conviction of Rayat for Air India 182 case, okay, which is the final conviction which came. And I'm going to read that conviction from you. So hear these words, and tell me if these words are anywhere close to the picture of Rayat building bombs that Terry was trying to portray when he was talking about how what Rayat did. Okay. Um, okay. On this sentencing hearing, both the Crown and the defense have advanced a joint submission that 5 years is an appropriate additional period of incarceration to be served by Mr. Rayat. The issue for the court is whether that submission should be acceptable. He already got 10 for Narita. Now this was 5 years. This was for manslaughter. Now, the next statement. The agreed statement of fact, which was filed as Exhibit 1 on the sentencing hearing, states as follows. In May and June 1985, in the province of British Columbia, Mr. Rayat acquired various materials for the purpose of aiding others in the making of the explosive devices. Mr. Rayat was told and believed that the explosive devices would be transported to India in order to blow up property such as a car, a bridge, or something heavy. Although Mr. Rayat acquired materials for this purpose, he did not make or arm any explosive device, nor did he place an explosive device on an airplane, nor does he know who did or did not do so. At no time did Mr. Rayat intended by his actions to cause death to any person or believe that such consequences were likely to occur. However, unbeknown to Mr. Rayat, the items that he acquired were used by other person or persons. Here is not Mr. Parmar, okay? Other person or person, because that Mr. X who took these items, we never knew who that guy was. Other person or persons to help make an explosive device that on or about June 23, 1985, destroyed Air India Flight 182, killing all 329 people on board. The Crown did not allege, nor did it prove, that the accused intended to kill anyone or that he knew that others intended to use the bomb to kill anyone. This is what exactly written in his conviction, because this is the only proof we had. Now, this is again from the same conviction. This is consistent with the interpretation that the accused was a lesser player in the plot who may not have been fully aware of the extent of the nefarious intentions of his co plotters. Okay, in his submission, Mr. Wright stated that the RCMP have never stopped in this case. Since June of 1985, they have been at work and they have aggressively pursued all investigative leads. As a result of that investigation, which I think can only be described as exhaustive, the evidence available to the Crown supports nothing further than the charge of manslaughter. Okay, now manslaughter is not the same as, being part of the conspiracy. So the court is saying that Rayat was not part of the conspiracy. There was a conspiracy going on, and and who was actually charged for conspiracy? The only person that Crown blamed for conspiracy, they couldn't prove, but the only person they blamed for, and even Rayat, they never, even in the case, the Crown never said Rayat was part of the conspiracy. They always claimed that Rayat was a lesser known player, and he was basically bought to kind of, he was made to buy this equipment, which was handed over to Mr. X. But the Crown alleged that Ripudaman Malik was in charge of the entire conspiracy. He was the one who was financing. He was the one, who booked the tickets through Hardayal Jol. He was the one who took the bags to the airport, and all that evidence I have shared in my other presentation. You can go and see it. Okay, here are some cuttings where I show that actually in the Air India 182 bombing, no explosive residue was found on the wreckage. The wreckage that was recovered, now only 5% was recovered, but no remnants of that. This is that, if you see the lower last line here, 1255, this is exactly, this is coming, this is para number 1255 from the Air India 182 judgment. None of the remnants, I'm going to read verbatim, none of the remnants of the explosive device which brought down Kanishka was recovered. Not just the explosive device, no explosive residue was also recovered. Here is again from the Kanishka 8, Air India 182 judgment. Overview of experts' opinion, paragraph 59. Aircraft accident investigation classically relies on three primary analyses: forensic analysis, structural damage analysis, and wreckage trail analysis. With most of the wreckage of Air India 182 resting on the ocean floor, investigators were denied the forensic evidence that had been available at Narita, such as bomb components and chemical residues. They could not find any explosive evidence of the wreckage which came out. even though it came out from water. It's quite rare that we couldn't find residue on the wreckage. Here is a newspaper item which basically claims that while bodies were recovered, there was no sign of any explosive residue, which was strange. Okay, so with that said, now you kind of compare it to the image that this guy was building, and if you want to hear, it's a long one, so I'm not going to go back. Where he was trying to build a case, like some case which is entirely different from the actual facts and evidence. Modi Busterji is asking for. I will probably give him a mic if he has something relevant to contribute, and that'll give me a break as well. Hanji Modi Busterji, you want to ask something? Modi Busterji, you want to ask something? Or you're just here for.
Yes.
Hanji, go ahead. Modi Busterji, you have a question before I continue? Okay, he's left. Okay, no worries. Okay, let's move to another lie of Terry. Okay, here is a lie that he consistently talks about. Oh, this public inquiry. And Rola is, I don't know, Rola has left. Rola is here. Rola, this is the point that you were asking, that should we get a public, like an inquiry? And listen to this one, okay? There was actually a public inquiry. Uh, you guys should remember there was a recent inquiry that happened on foreign interference. And you saw how that public inquiry was so empowered. It called people from every walk of life, and it could force people to make depositions. It could cross examine people. It could ask some other person to cross examine somebody else to test the witness. There is no such thing called confidentiality. If it needed a secret government to share a secret report, it was empowered to ask for that secret report. That is what the whole idea of a public inquiry is, where it can really investigate an issue, fix the responsibility, and move on. But this public inquiry, the so-called public inquiry that Terry Mollusky kind of waves, oh, this has proven Parmar was mastermind, and this is all a hogwash. What Terry is hiding from you is the real fact that this public inquiry was not empowered, even with its terms of reference, to investigate the bombing and to fix responsibility for the bombing, and specifically never to touch the role of government of India. That was the terms of reference. But Terry will never talk about that. But he's going to actually weave. He's going to start blame when WSO will raise a question that this public inquiry was not properly empowered with the terms of reference. And when CC investigators publicly raise that question, rather than supporting that argument, because that's the logical argument, Terry Mollusky starts attacking WSO as if WSO has an interior motive. Okay, here is listen to his audio here, okay, and make out what he's saying, and then we're going to debunk what all he's claiming here in this video. Here we go.
What, nearly 15 years ago now, in 2010, they did actually file a learned legal submission with the inquiry. And you can Google it. You can see these receipts for yourself. If you just Google Air India Flight 182, a Canadian tragedy, up will pop the full record of the Air India Judicial Inquiry under retired Supreme Court Justice John Major, ending with a report of June 2010, I guess, and including under a section called Submissions, you will see this extraordinary and little noticed rant by lawyers for the World Sikh Organization, which presages what we now have seen on the streets with mobs of Khalistanis claiming that India blew up their own plane. And this submission said, it was striking at the time, nobody noticed it, nobody really even read it much in Ottawa. They figured, well, it's more of the same from the WSO, what do you expect? This is what the World Sikh Organization does. Nobody really talked about it. Nobody did a story about it. But it said, and I'm quoting it, I have it in front of me, it is the WSO's position that inadequate attention was paid to the question of whether the Indian government was itself involved in the bombing of Air India Flight 182. Credible individuals outside this inquiry have suggested that Indian officials may have been involved in the bombing. Doesn't say how, by the way. And that the threat of Sikh terrorism may have been, get this is a good one. The threat of Sikh terrorism may have been a manufactured and manipulated threat fabricated by the Indian government for its own political gains, i.e., to discredit the Sikh separatist movement in Punjab. Now, I'm quoting that at length because it's so startling, and because it underlies everything that's happening today with this denialism that we, the Khalistanis, did what we.
Okay. Okay, you hear like he's kind of attacking the WSO rather than basically saying that hey, they're just basically just lying. They're attacking this inquiry, which was so sacrosanct. That inquiry was like fixed the responsibility. Now the WSO is ranting and saying that the government of India role was not investigated is totally fabrication. Now actually the person lying is Terry Milewski. He's lying through his teeth, because no less than John Major himself, not even verbally, in writing, John Major has written in writing, and it is part of the inquiry report. And I'm showing that excerpt right now on my on my screen, where John Major says, "Yes, my terms of reference forbid me from investigating the role of government of India. My terms of reference do not allow me to fix the responsibility of bombing. That is not the job of this inquiry report committee." He says it in no uncertain words. You don't have to go to anywhere else. You just have to read John Major's own response that is documented in that inquiry report. Has Terry Milewski not read it? He has read it, but he's not going to bring this out. But he's going to basically say that WSO is wrong in saying this inquiry did not investigate the role of government of India or did not do a right inquiry. But he's not going to bring out the fact that it was not that what they were raising was that the terms of reference itself did not empower John Major Commission inquiry to fix the responsibility. And that is why John Major, in that public inquiry, John Major never tried to fix the responsibility for the bombing. It was not his mandate to figure out what the conspiracy was, who was the mastermind, who was number two, number three, number four, number six. That was not his mandate. His mandate was totally different. What was his mandate? We are going to read in his own words, and due to which John Major could never ask all those CC's agents who had leaked information to Toronto Star, to Globe and Mail, to come and testify and reveal their information to them about what was the role of government of India. That is why John Major could never go and bring to answer hard questions on the leaked memo which came out from the RCMP investigation team, which showed that government of India was behind this bombing. That is why he could not call Zuhair Kashmiri. He refused to call Zuhair Kashmiri to testify, who was the Globe and Mail correspondent who had quoted CC's agents and his sources to kind of lay out the whole conspiracy in the book Soft Target. Otherwise, Zuhair Kashmiri would have been there and he would have been asked, who are these sources? He couldn't have then said, oh, these are, I'm going to keep them confidential. He would have to reveal those names, and those people would have been called to testify in camera, maybe. And then all that beans would have been spilled. But that whole inquiry was nubbed in a bud by deliberately not giving it, because it's a political inquiry. Canada did not want to destroy its relationship with India, all its diplomatic and trade relationships. And that is why the victims of that dastardly terror attack never got justice till date. And the real masterminds, whom we know, Surinder Malik, the Consul General of India, Davinder Ahluwalia, another raw intelligence operative of India that was there, monitoring another consulate of India in Canada. These guys are all free. God knows where they are. They have vanished from this earth. Nobody knows where they are. Anyways, here is what I'm going to read. This is the response that John Major gave to WSO when WSO asked that John Major should call in witnesses Gary Bass, who is the RCMP head of Air India 182 inquiry, Zuhair Kashmiri, the David Kilgore, and multiple other witnesses they called, and affidavit they submitted. John Major rejected them all. But here I'm going to read them verbatim to you, okay? This is John Major quote, and I'm quoting, quote, a review of the terms of reference of this commission of inquiry reveals that the investigation of the bombing of Air India Flight 182 is intended to serve as a backdrop and reference point for issues as to the degree of cooperation demonstrated between the departments and agencies of the Government of Canada, including RCMP and CSIS. Again, I say, issues as to the degree of cooperation demonstrated between the departments and agencies of the Government of Canada, including RCMP and ICCs. The investigation is also intended to present a reference point for the issue of transforming security intelligence into evidence admissible in a criminal trial. Here is the clincher. Quote, none of the terms of reference calls for an inquiry into the issue of who was responsible for the bombing of Flight 182, nor of the role, if any, of the Government of India, nor of the thoroughness of the investigation of any such role by the RCMP and or CSIS. Okay. So, should I read it again? None of the terms of reference calls for an inquiry into the issue of who was responsible for the bombing of Flight 182, nor of the role, if any, of the Government of India, nor of the thoroughness of the investigation of any such role by the RCMP and or CSIS. So, okay, so what was this inquiry for? What credibility does this public inquiry carry if it was not even authorized into the issue of who was responsible for this bombing, or if there was a role of Government of India or not, or how thorough the investigation was from RCMP or CSIS? Okay, so that is why WSO rightfully claims that this inquiry, and it is not just WSO. Francois Levine, who was the lead investigator in CSIS, lead investigator in this bombing, this is what he says about the inquiry. Okay, Francois Levine, a respected intelligence analyst, says the major commission into the 1985 Air India bombing suffered from the fatal flaw of not being allowed to investigate the role of Indian government in the attack. And this he said in 2012 after the inquiry came out. So we have to trust Terry, but what is Terry saying? WSO is wrong because they are saying this inquiry is flawed, was flawed. Francois Levine, who was the main investigator, he's a fool. He has gone mad because he's saying he's also a traitor, maybe bought by Khalistani terrorists, because he's claiming the inquiry is flawed because the inquiry is not empowered to investigate who was behind the bombing. And the moment you make this suggestion to him, Rola, should we have a real public inquiry? He will immediately say no. He'll come up with 10 excuses why you have to say. But you imagine, you remember how he basically kind of said WSO is wrong, just go how sophisticatedly he kind of, backtracked from this. Okay, just hold on. Let's just go back and, let's just go back.
So, Ajit, my brief point is that
Yeah.
329 people were killed, innocent lives were lost, including the crew members, right? And the case has been closed without any proper conclusion. Reinitiation is needed. I think a petition would initiate that. That will encourage the parliamentary committee to send this case to the Justice Department to review and then open the case again. That's the process, I think. I've Googled it a bit an hour ago, and that's the process. Petition, parliamentary committee, Justice Department, review, open the case.
Yeah, no, we should do that for sure. And I think if the government should just plain order, public inquiry, which is empowered to investigate. हाँ जी करूँगी.
मेरी बात सुन, you are एक second okay. You're an educated man. Yeah, these things. जो ये यहाँ हो रहा है, instead of talking to Terry Melowsi straight away, engage with him. dispute with him. ये one-sided जो तुम लोग करते हो ना.
No.
this is
There's
so
no.
unfair.
Hold on. There's no one-sided. Okay, hold on. Terry Milewski has been invited in every single space I have done on Air India 182. He has never dared to come here. I have invited him. I even tagged him in this, when I started this. Oh, he is more than invited. But what? But he's going to come to the neutral space like my space. Yeah, if he expect that a Hindu Tavi Indian IT cell will run a space where I will go, that's not going to happen. He can come. He's more than welcome. I have tasked him multiple times. He should come here. I will give him co-host, so he cannot be muted. He can talk and he can present, but there are these facts, and the facts are there, undeniable, and I'm showing evidence from the court judgment from every place else. And if he disputes anything, he has all the means available. He can dispute on Twitter. He can come to my space. He can do his own space. But what are they going to deny? But he's basically launching a disinformation campaign. You tell me which aspect. Don't go in generalities. Tell me which aspect lie that I am debunking here I am incorrect on a fact based. That is what you should be talking about. That I'm more than happy to listen to.
Invite him, engage with him. ये जो poison जो फैलता है ना इसमें ये communities के बीच में, the misunderstanding that is created, ये बहुत इसको ठीक करना बहुत मुश्किल हो जाता है.
No. Hold on. Oh, no. Hold on. No. Hold on. No. Hold on. For 30 years, this guy has been spreading disinformation that the Sikh community and the Khalistanis are the ones who did this. There are kids who were brought up within Canada who got bullied in school, the Sikh kids, because the whole community was defamed through a disinformation campaign by this one person and the entire Indian government machinery. The same killers who murdered 329 innocents. There is realms and realms of evidence available. Every single investigator, CC investigator who was there has come out and told that Indian government was involved. So who is spreading hate?
This issue जो तुम कहते हो ना ये जो तुम बात की जो prognosis कर रहे हो.
There is no prognosis. Hold on. There is no prognosis. This is just evidence. The only guy who indulges in rhetoric is this disinformation spreader. Every time I have uttered a single piece, I have given you evidence. I have given you the court case. But if you are going to just talk about generalities, that is you are wasting time.
एक conclusion है एक कोर्ट का एक कचहरी का.
क्या कंक्लूजन है? No. Have you read क्या कंक्लूजन है कोर्ट का कचहरी का कि इंडियन गवर्नमेंट बेकसूर है? हाँ, फिर क्या कंक्लूजन है? आपने पढ़ा भी है? Hold on. You're saying that the court has declared Indian government is innocent, or the public inquiry has declared have you even heard what all I have said till now? Now you're disrupting the space. If you have something valid to contribute, okay? And bring Terry Mruski here. He is more than welcome to come here. But he should come, but he's never coming. I have invited him more than, how many times, I don't know. But he never is able to gather the courage because he knows he's spreading disinformation. Okay. So if there's something relevant, let's talk about that. We'll get distracted. Let's hear. Hold on for a second. I'll give you the mic again. Let's hear, when Terry is asked to basically stand by his own statements, what he does. Okay. Let's hear it again. Now, after you have seen, I've debunked his lies. Here is what, let's hear that clip again. And here it goes.
Terry will debunk their conspiracy theories with real evidence. So he already tweeted he's going to be here. He will come with receipts. So that means he will come with evidence, all the references and everything. It should be a very interesting space. Thanks. Yeah, Tony, go ahead.
Terry, I will have a very simple yes or no question. Okay? Do you solemnly affirm that the evidence and all the statements that you have given in this space are truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Please answer yes or no.
What evidence or statements have I made? I don't know. I can't remember what I said.
Again, let me repeat my question once again, so very clearly. Do you solemnly affirm that?
Yeah, I heard you, but I can't remember everything I said. I've been talking for more than 2 hours.
Okay, but whatever you have,
Yeah.
is it the truth, the whole truth, and nothing?
No, I'm not going to bite. I'm not here to swear oaths at your pleasure.
So as KDR अपनी fan had rightfully characterized, here is Terry debunking himself. Okay, so anybody wants to ask me this question? If I swear that everything I told in last 2 hours is truth and only but the truth. Anyone who wants to challenge me to that challenge? I'll say yes. There is no doubt because everything I said was truth. Why would I say untruth? Take me to any court. But why is this guy not able to say that for 2.5 hours? Because he knows that he's been spreading disinformation. He's been lying, and I've shown it to you how he lies. So even after he has, like, in no uncertain terms, for 2.5 hours he was in that space. Then he ended it by saying, "Guys, don't trust me. I am not going to swear I told you the truth. Okay, don't trust me." So what else was that? So this is how, like, I think this is how this person has been, using. But you have to marvel at him, the way he does it, because he's been this TV anchor. So he knows how to play with words and basically, take the grains of truth, hide 80% of the other inconvenient truth, and then add another fact on your own from yourself, and then create this fanciful illusion that, oh, there were just Parmar and Raya, these two single guys, two village simpletons who suddenly, bombed two aircraft, made an elaborate plan, which basically include two bombs going off simultaneously across the continent at a specific time, while all being under CIS's surveillance for a couple of, for how many months. So they were able to come up with this act, and nobody else was involved. Government of India is innocent. Forget about Malik. If somebody asks a question, Malik was a good guy. He was just getting, he was a good businessman. Nobody even knew that he was funding Barkatha. Forget about all these things. Forget about all these CIS investigators who have said that all leads actually led to Government of India consulates. Forget, this inquiry, which was a sham, which was not empowered to even investigate or fix responsibility for the bombing. Forget all that, because all that is inconvenient to the theory image that he wants to sell to you guys. This is how disinformation is spread. Hopefully, you guys learnt a bit the art of, lying from Terry Melowski. He's a master class in that. There is no doubt, and but next time you listen to him, I urge everybody to get more educated on the Air India 182 case. Read. This is not the only space I have done. This is not the only live stream I have done. I've done multiple others in which I have actually shared a lot more evidence. Today, the focus was primarily to just debunk some of the things, but I have the last space I did. I have given the whole timeline of events, etc., etc. Uh, if we have time, we can go through some of that evidence again, but maybe not. Okay. We can have a bit of a discussion before we close. Anybody wants to speaker? They're more than welcome. While you guys are coming up, let me ask Coin to come on. Coin, if you can take the speaker. Okay, Air India 182. Okay, anybody have any questions or something they want to add before we end the space? We can even shift to Punjabi if we have to at this point in time. And do we have enough listeners today? Hopefully, Sunday it's a bit of a, generally I see Sundays you don't get that much. Saturday, Friday, people are more willing to dial in, but hopefully enough people listened. Okay. And please retweet the space, spread it out, let people understand, that how these Sophisticated liars like Terry Molosky have been trying to keep the public away from the truth of Air India 182 case. Their main aim is to keep you focused on, Talwinder Parmar and Riyadh. That's it. Done deal. Their main aim is to make sure that there is no genuine public inquiry into this issue because the beans will be spilled. Their main aim is that the main perpetrators of this dastardly act, the main masterminds, are never brought to the book or never caught because those masterminds potentially have some kind of I don't know what the relationship is with Terry, but I think there's enough circumstantial evidence the way Terry goes out of the way to hide the evidence of Indian government involvement, the way he goes out of the way to safeguard some of the accused. I think anybody will make a logical conclusion that there is something hanky panky going on between Terry Molosky and the Indian state. And I hope now that CSIS has got a new law, new provisions where they can more aggressively investigate such cases of foreign interference, that they do a proper investigation on Terry Molosky. And I'm pretty sure it is going on, even if it is not brought to public notice, because this is almost a close and open and shut case of foreign interference. The way this guy has been lying, hiding information from the public very selectively to make a particular narrative that this particular act was just a handiwork of Sikhs and two extremist element of the Sikhs, especially those who demand the right for self-determination, is obvious. Hopefully, it's obvious to many of you as well who've been listening to my spaces. And KD is here. Hanji KD pe karo koi galbaat, if anything you want to add or share.
Ji, Sat Sri Akal.
Sat Sri Akal.
Yeah, so honestly, to be fair, at the end of the day, when, they did their space and Terry came and he said what he said, if you cannot stand behind it, when you're asked, do you swear that everything you're saying is the truth and nothing but the truth? And he cannot say yes. It's right there. It's debunked. He's debunked himself. If you cannot stand behind what you are saying, well, then it doesn't matter. Now you're just telling a fictional story, right? It's not facts. I don't know why Terry is behind, so anti-Sikh and behind the Sikhs, so just after them so much. I don't know, did something happen? What's up with him with that? Because the thing is, it doesn't matter how much you bring facts and evidence and bring it to him. It's like, it's like the three monkeys. I see nothing, I hear nothing, I speak nothing. Like, he just can't comprehend or read when it comes to actual facts that are presented. It's like, no. I can't think that Sikhs are good in any way. I don't know.
Yeah. No, I'm totally with you. I think there could be there is something interesting fact. I was reading the wiki on Terry, though it's probably a waste of time because I got curious, like, how on earth you get a person like, imagine Katie, like, if he had actually read that John Major inquiry report, if he had actually read that, the court judgment, and if he was actually sitting there, it's obvious to him, like an average person can get misled, but it should be obvious to him that, hey, there's a government of India hand all over. Everybody, it's very clean and simple. And then he is doing this act, then there could be only two things: that he has some visceral hatred for Sikhs, and or he has such low morals that he could just throw away his consciousness for a few dollars. These are the only two cases you can justify this kind of a behavior. And so that made me kind of look at Wikipedia of what is the profile, what is the background of this person. And then when I was looking at that background, he's born in UK, Muslim mom, Jew father. I don't know what happened when he was growing up, but he has a very checkered background. He was And when he got kicked out of one university, then in the second university he got kicked out again for walking on a beach, like a public beach, nude, and some kind of a strange incident, which and some kind of a antisocial behavior, you call it. And then he came to Canada and was in a sawmill worker, and sawmills have a lot of sakes. Maybe that's where something happened, I believe, where his ego got hurt, or somebody kind of kicked his ass or did something to him, god knows. And then he became like a radio jockey, a disc jockey, not radio jockey, disc jockey, where he was playing some music in some discos. From there he becomes like he gets a break into as a temporary reporter in some local newspaper, and that's how his career in media starts. And even in media, there are, he is not a respected personality. If you People call him a liar on his face. And so yeah, it's kind of sad that a person can live such a life where, even after knowing the truth that these are the murderers who killed 329 people, what kind of circumstances will make you actually stand on the side of the murderers? Like, you can only feel sorry for that individual, if you actually think about it.
Honestly, I think as a journalist, any real journalist, if they hear about a story or they read about a story, um, they don't just go off of that story. They do their research. And a journalist that isn't willing to do their research properly and just has one viewpoint, which is its own viewpoint, honestly, how can that be a credited journalist? You've only got one viewpoint. You're biased, you're one-sided. That's not a journalist at that point. That's how I see it anyway.
Yeah, before we go to Squamish, I just want to make a point. Like, I don't want to disrespect the profession of journalism by calling Terry journalist, because he's a TV anchor. There's a big difference between journalists, and like, journalists are the ones who work in like a written medium, like newspapers, where they are able to write. And there is a fundamental difference I've seen between written journalism and TV anchors. The TV anchors, if there's something about this medium TV where you can just say whatever you want to say and you are never held accountable. You can keep uttering and you can throw like words loosely here and there. And there is something about when you are made to put it in writing, the same stuff that you can probably just say like without any restraint, you will think twice before putting it in writing. There's something about writing, and so that's why there's this huge difference between written media and so-called this TV jokers. And to me, he is like a low class joker from the television. And yeah, so I won't call him a journalist, like a disgraced TV anchor maybe. Yeah, Squamish, go ahead, and then we'll go to Max. To you.
Hey, Archie, thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk. Waiguji Khalsa, Waiguji Ki Fateh.
Waiguji Ki Fateh.
So, this is my gut feelings, and we used to watch movies, really old movies, and there's a pattern where in like these music videos, people are dancing, and you all of a sudden you see these like gore people, like white people dancing in the background just to throw like credibility, even though the movie's focused in India, but somehow white people are dancing in the background. All of a sudden they're in India, but the scene starts in other countries like Canada, America, other European countries. So it's almost like they want to buy the credibility of white people to make them live credible. And I have the feeling that that's what the scenario is happening. The disinformation group that's out there consistently bickering about sex, even though they're practicing their democratic rights in terms of protesting, referendum, all that stuff. But you see the consistently bickering, and when you look behind it, it's mainly that they're trying to get credibility from other communities. And in specifically related to Terry, if you if you've seen his book Blood for something something that he wrote, it's on Amazon as well, that he promotes every single time. In fact, it was funded by India to write that book, and it gets promoted every single time. And he gets respected and brought in as almost like he's a very credible person. And thanks to your collection of the conversation of the previous space where they brought him as credible with facts and person who speaks the truth, but then they one of the six when he asked like, do you know confirming that he's telling the truth, and he just completely walked away. Doesn't remember anything past 2 hours of what he said. And we know what's happening, but this whole facade of bringing a white skinned person to like that we're somehow more cool, or look, we have more credibility even though we're lying, and we're not going to focus on the facts, but throw cow dung on six as well, and basically that's what it feels like. Can you elaborate on that a little bit more? Like, why do they need foreigners to tell what's happening within their communities? There's Sikh being, within Punjab that's occupied by India, or even in other parts of the world. Why do they need other people to tell about what's happening?
Yeah, no, that's a very important question, and you're talking about like the book. Before I go to that question, like please don't buy that book. It is not a book. Calling that pamphlet a book is the one that he published is an insult to just the word book. I have read that. It's a pamphlet. He basically, it's not a book. He basically collected some articles written in media in different parts of time in his career and put them in one binding and said, this is a book, Blood for Blood. It has nothing. You can read that whole thing pamphlet in like 15 minutes or 30 minutes at the max. And it's just a waste of time. And, way better information is available than what he has in that so called book. Now, the other part is like why the Indian nationalists and Hindu nationalists, they look for validity from, for some reason they have this weird, respect for, they need this validation from outside, and it's very evident in their society, in their culture, in their attitude. And I think it stems from, think of it this way, Squamish, and I think it obviously looks odd to Sikhs, because Sikhs generally don't show that kind of a behavior. Nowadays, you see somebody showing that awkward behavior, but in generally, the Sikhs show way more self confidence and comfort in their skin than seeking validation all the time. But when it obviously looks very odd to somebody who's probably born here, that why are these guys behaving like this, and why do they need validation from a third rate white skinned person for some reason that gives them more self confidence. It's obvious, like you see this is another guy who's actually a Turkish Muslim. Like if you watch him, like he can't probably write a single sentence correctly, like he's a nobody. And then just because he looks somebody, like his name sounds a bit Caucasian, they will kind of rally behind him. Look, we have got a certificate. Think of it this way, Squamish, like if you are, let us say, the most in a class of students, if you are the most dumb kid, you are last in class of 60 students, and then suddenly there is a student who is the topper of the class. He comes to you and says one day, Squamish, you are a good student, your math is good. That will be one big validation for you, right? Oh, like my math is good. That is what the state of Indian society and Indian media is. Look at Indian media. It is ranked 161 out of 180 countries. So it's basically the bottom rung, the worst media you can find in the world. So they know that they have no credibility. Like their media is uttering lies day in and day out to them. Look at the TV channels in India. You are in their hearts, they like watching that echo chamber, but in their hearts they know this is all lies. This is all lies that they watch all day. Every single channel is state control, government control, and it's basically pumping them lies. It's not just bias. Like in US, you have biased media, and this media is biased here, this media is biased here, but not like 100% of it is not a government controlled entity. But in India, they know it. That's all bullshit that they're being sold. So when somebody from outside says something which verifies that opinion, that carries a lot more weight for them than their own selves or their own people telling them that fact, because they know that it's probably cooked up. So that is one. And then there's a deep, like, I think, inferiority complex due to 1100 years of slavery, which has, gone into the mind of people. Yeah, Max CG, go ahead.
ਹਾਂਜੀ ਜੀ ਭਾਜੀ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ
Wahi ji Fateh.
So, well, Squamish we has already elaborated on some of the points I wanted to raise. So, one thing I wanted to ask was, for example, you were talking about the Turkish guy, and or then there are some other. There's a Russian woman. Um, so the propaganda that the India is spreading through these accounts has really gone like overboard in past couple of, I would say, a month or a month and a half. So this Mocha guy is actually writing fake articles almost every other day. I would say actually twice a day. He makes 2 tweets a day at least. And what I find disconcerting is the amount of following these people have is actually going up quite a bit. So I think it's just a matter of time before we actually see this hatred on ground for us. And this will actually have on the ground repercussions. And there is no other, I would say, credible media personality or any. I don't know how the government is even supposed to do that, countering this false narrative. So I know Coin Pants is sitting here. She's been giving these guys a run for their money. But well, what can we do to actually counter this? Because this will eventually translate to on the ground violence against Sikhs.
Yeah. No, like, I think what the Indian government is smartly trying to do is trying to appeal to the racist element within Western society and try to create some kind of a backlash against immigrants, and not just Sikhs, like any immigrant. I think they have gone to that extent now. Any backlash is good backlash, because in unfortunately in America, if you look at the hate crimes, you will see that the Sikhs are the highest victims in terms of probability. The second highest probability is, the if you are a Sikh, you are 5 times more probable of getting being a victim of hate crime than a black person, because just you are so much visible, and there's a mistaken identity with Muslims for Sikhs. They know these guys. These guys know it. So if there is any kind of a racial backlash, immigrant backlash, they know the Sikhs will be the biggest victim. But they miscalculate, Max Steel. They miscalculate. Okay, the miscalculation is, first of all, US, there is something called a Second Amendment. Okay, another thing in US is like, it's their understanding of racism of within US is way out of date. So Sikhs will be able to defend themselves. Don't worry. And I think if something happens, this is why we have Second Amendment. Sikhs should be able to stand up for themselves. And who the actual losers will be these the so-called poison that they have injected in the the veins of American society. Those people will become victims of that kind of a backlash, and it'll be unfortunate. But the only thing we can do is, as responsible citizens, is to spread as much education as we can. That's what I am trying to do, and Coin is trying to do. Many of you are trying to do. So we can make our best effort. बाकी तो हमारा ही मर्जी है. There is not we can do. But I do think, like, that, and I think it's not gone unnoticed. I think our national security establishment is hopefully waking up to it. That is what the sense I get. Yes, Komish, go ahead.
If I have permission, I would like to answer as well, or contribute at least. So, if you look at the percentage wise, we are 1.7% of Indian population. And if these, we already see these people, like white supremacists and Nazi groups, they are every so often making comments about Sikhs, like why they're here, why they're protesting, go back home, stuff like that. You have to look at the weight behind it, and how it's going to unfold, the whole stuff. The way it's going to unfold is we have far more dirt on, or the content, and it's not like we created that content. They self-created that content. And thanks to the internet, they post it on YouTube and Twitter and everywhere else. And it's just a matter of like compiling it together and sharing with people. They are self-exposing themselves of things they do, the cleanliness, the hatred toward other communities, the threats, the rape threats, and how they're going to perform those rapes. All that stuff the white communities are already facing from Indians the minute they speak up against Indians. So that reduces our homework. We don't need to do as much because it's self-exposed. My gut feelings, I'm not an expert on this. They have like IT cells that they run a certain agenda. The following that you're talking about are mostly fake accounts, and there are tons of researchers out there, and they come with like Mr. George and Mr. White, and they pretend to be part of these communities. They get the following, and then so forth. But in reality, these are just a bunch of people who are spreading hate against Sikhs with certain guidelines. I'm not sure who provides that, but it seems like they're the same guidelines that the Turkish guy and Terry and Cat Lady and so forth, they're all working on. But what happens is they might not be giving the right threats or offering money to these white supremacists, but the other on the ground people who are not part of their circle, they don't know how to follow those guidelines, so they slip up every so often. So they just go in full-fledged threatening these white people because that's what they do in India, right? Like anybody who raises their voice, their first threat is, "Oh, we're gonna kill you," or rape your family, and this and that kind of stuff. But the minute they do, they self-expose, and even if it's just purely from white people, all the threats coming. Again, we're only 2% of Canadian population, representing 1.7% population of India. So the amount of the hate and threats you will be getting is 1.7%. And to fight back, I would say that we continue to do the work we're doing, which is continue to contribute to the land that you're on, take care of it, follow the laws, and be part of that community. And when you do that, on the ground, the reality would be different than what's happening on social media. And then you contradict that automatically. And that's my thought process behind this.
No, absolutely, absolutely, Squamish. And the amount of goodwill Sikhs have on ground, they are underestimating. And so we'll see how things go. And the Baki A like none of these Hindu tavis come when I present facts, okay? They are welcome. KD आया सी KD दौड़ गया KD ਨੂੰ मैं mute ਇਸ ਕਰਕੇ ਕੀਤਾ because he was at that time I was in a presentation mode, so I don't like distraction during that time. If he's welcome to come back, if he's listening in anonymous, come back and I'll give you the mic. Feel free now to have any general discussion on whosoever you want. But yeah, Terry Mluski will never come to my space. But if he had guts, he was probably listening in the in the anonymous. But if he had guts, he would have already come because he knows, what he's spreading as plain lies. And it's high time, that there is a public inquiry into this. One of the things, that's why I think with Ripudaman Malik's assassination, India have benefited the most. And that is why I feel that India was behind that assassination as well. Because if Ripudaman Malik was alive and a public inquiry happened, all the beans would have been spilled. Because once Ripudaman Malik is on that table where he is going to face a public inquiry, where now he'll be confronted by the evidence of his $2 million loan and what CC's investigators have on him. That is when he will break, and that would have opened up the real issue. And I think the reason why he was killed or assassinated by India was basically Kanishka, and 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 we will and now they have basically silenced him, and the CC should take care of. I don't know how high up Bagdi was kind of involved. I don't think he probably even he was more a foot soldier, but maybe he also has some relevant information. But Malik was the main guy, and actually on the day Malik was assassinated, now it is public information that main accused of Air India bombing, he was in back to back regular touch with this person called Amarjeet Singh IFS, who is a raw or IB officer of Indian intelligence, who was actually at that point in time in Vancouver. So just before his murder, he was basically talking had multiple calls and text message exchange with Amarjeet. And so, what has Amarjeet IFS got to do with the murder of Ripudaman Malik? And I am told that immediately after the assassination, Amarjeet IFS basically left Canada and went to India or some other country for another deputation. So, and that person, Amarjeet IFS, he is very active on social media. And some people tell me he's the main handler for these Indian agents. Like, what is the name of that person in California? Sukhi Chahal, another very strange character, who is kind of a shady character, I would call, with a very very checkered and shady past. Who is allowed to roam freely in our countries. But I don't see him much. Does anybody know where is this person Sukhi Chahal? I don't hear much on his YouTube channel. Used to be very active, but nowadays seems to be very quiet. Anybody heard of him or from him? No. Okay. Okay. I think we had a long space then. We had a good discussion. Hopefully, this information was helpful. But I'll take leave from everyone. I want to thank everyone. And I just want to show you this again before we close. This is what I've started like very initial draft of the book that I intend to write. And this is the cover I am thinking of for that book. This donates this lady. She actually fell down. When she fell down, the postmortem revealed that the lady survived. She was the only survivor. She was alive when she fell down, and probably because she was pregnant and she wanted the kid to live. And both the mother and the child were alive for many minutes in that icy cold water. So this book will be dedicated to them whenever it comes out. Okay, D Singh Ji wants to come up. Let's take him. Maybe one or two last questions before we close.
So you were asking about Suki Chal, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's here in the Bay Area, it's Fremont, I believe, or Union City. ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਤਾਂ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਕਾਫੀ ਬੁਲਾਉਂਦੇ ਰਹਿੰਦੇ ਆ ਤੇ ਫਿਰ ਹੁਣ ਉਹਦੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਨਿਕਲੀ ਨਾ ਵੀ ਪਾਸਟ ਕਿਉਂ ਭੱਜਿਆ ਉਹ ਪੰਜਾਬ ਤੋਂ and the rape allegation, I think there was like a rape allegation and some other stuff, some bad stuff. So I think he maybe went dark. But I don't know. Yeah, he's in Bay Area.
No, I find it interesting that even this guy Terry went silent for last 7-8 months on social media, and his silence kind of overlaps with the Sukhi Chahal silence. Yeah, not sure if there is a connection, but yeah.
I don't know if maybe they're expecting if India starts killing people here, maybe they're thinking, oh, maybe Punjabi or Sikhs will start retaliating to their puppets here. So they're thinking, oh, am I now in the crossfire?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, they have to think about it, right?
Yeah. No, absolutely.
I mean, nobody's going to kind of advocate for that. That's like kind of probably hurt our movement. But there's always a lone wolf who kind of is like, I've had it, and then they may just like go do something.
No, not the lone wolf. I think the biggest danger to them will be from Indian state itself. Like Ripudaman Malik, he probably spent his life doing their cause. But they are the one who bumped him off.
This is a guy like, imagine Bin Laden kind of after 9/11 visits America, and then I think he met Indian leaders, right?
Yeah.
So like he'll meet like leaders there here in America, and then he goes back. That's kind of like the equivalent of what he did. He went there, and then I think he had meetings, and then that's just crazy.
No, he didn't in her meetings. He meant he had meetings with Samant Goel, not just the politicians. Okay, he had a meeting with the R&AW Intelligence Bureau chief. Let me show you his brother's interview. Somebody sent the link actually. Let me pull up if I can find that link. Mm, okay, just hold on. Uh, let me try to pull that out. Somebody actually did share that on my Twitter line. Um, and hopefully it is that excerpt. His brother is basically sitting with the Ripudaman Malik on an India TV channel, and there he starts talking about how they met R. Samant Goel, and then the other guy who was probably their handler, he interviewed. He said, "No, no, no," he changes the topic. Okay, and before probably his brother is probably innocent and doesn't understand much what's going on. But let me just show that to you guys.
ने अपना सिख पंथ वास्ते किया वो कोई भी नहीं कर सकता क्योंकि उन्होंने अपना बड़े गलत टाइम भी मतलब कि देखे ने पर वो सारे जड़े ने गुरु की कृपा दे नाल किने ओदी भक्ति दे नाल लोगां दी अरदासां दे नाल किने सारा काम ठीक हो गया ते हुणे किने अच्छी जगह किने आए ने तो मैं मतलब कि शुक्रगुजार हाँ किने अपना मोदी साहब दा ਤੇ ਨਾਲੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਕਿ ਨੇ ਗੋਇਲ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਰॉ ਦੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਚੀਫ ਨੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਮਤਲਬ ਕਿ ਇੱਕ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਦੀ ਗਟਸ ਨਾਲ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਮਤਲਬ ਜਿੰਨੀਆਂ ਗਟਸ ਸੀਗੀਆਂ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਕਾਲੀ ਸੂਚੀ ਖਤਮ ਕਰਨ ਦਾ ਗਟ ਸੀਗੀ ਉਹ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਸੀਗੀ ਆਪਣੇ ਮੇਰੇ ਖਿਆਲ ਸ਼ਾਇਦ ਸਿੱਖ ਕੌਮ ਵਾਲਾ ਬੰਦਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਰ ਸਕਦਾ ਸੀ ਪਰ ਉਹ ਕਿਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਗੋਇਲ ਹੋਣ ਕਰਕੇ ਹਿੰਦੂ ਆ ਮੈਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਮਿਲਿਆ ਮੈਂ ਜਾ ਕੇ ਤੇ ਮਤਲਬ ਕਿ ਮਜ਼ਾ ਆ ਗਿਆ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਮਿਲ ਕੇ ਉੱਥੇ ਦਿੱਲੀ ਵਿੱਚ ਸੋ ਆਈ ਐਮ ਵੈਰੀ ਪ੍ਰਾਊਡ ਆਫ ਕਿਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਇਹ ਤੇ ਜਸਵੀਰ ਹੋਣ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਠੀਕ ਹੈ ਵੀ ਮਲਕ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਇਸ ਵੇਲੇ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਕਈ ਖੇਤਰਾਂ ਵਿੱਚ ਰੋਡ ਵੱਲ
Acha, Bhai Sahib, he intervened in time. Okay, this gentleman was probably more intelligent. And then he realized what a blunder is going on here. And he intervened in time to kind of stop Malik's brother from spilling more beans on kind of singing praises of Goel and Modi Sahib. So you're right, D Singh. It's like, imagine if tomorrow Obama is calling Osama bin Laden for dinner at White House. That is what's going on here. And then DC, but what I don't understand is, like I find it really hard to kind of sometimes kind of feel like I don't know whether I should feel bad for these people or should I hate these Indian nationalists who now they know that Indian government was behind killing their own brothers and sisters. They still call Terry Maluski and they still do a space and they still want to listen to that same lie and that the Sikhs did it and they are not willing to, question the real murderers. Like, what can, I don't understand, like, how can people be so subhuman? Like, what nationalism can cause your humanity to die to such an extent? I don't know. What's your take?
It's basically on the pocket ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਨਾ ਇਹਨੂੰ. That's what it is, right? Basically on the pocket who can change their own religious mantra for Modi instead of I think it's Har Har Mahadev, it's Har Har Modi. So that's like there's nothing sacred. If you can do that, you can do anything, and you'll believe anything. Basically, I think this is like no reason logic whatsoever.
Got it. Got it. Yeah, ਨਹੀਂ ਹਾਂ ਅੰਤ ਭਗਤ ਤੱਕ ਤਾਂ ਠੀਕ ਹੈ ਨਾ ਇਹ ਅੰਤ ਭਗਤੀ ਇੱਕ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਰਾਈਟ ਕਿ ਬੰਦਾ ਚਲੋ ਉਹ ਬੰਦੇ ਖਿਲਾਫ ਕੋਈ ਬੁਰੀ ਚੀਜ਼ ਨਹੀਂ ਸੁਣਦਾ ਰਾਈਟ ਲਾਈਕ ਬਟ ਇਮੈਜਿਨ ਲਾਈਕ ਦ ਅਮਾਊਂਟ ਆਫ ਲਾਈਕ what you say you see like the amount of evidence we are seeing here is that the Osama is called by Obama and is being defeated. Like you can't just escape this. Like you just can't brush this aside. Like it's kind of in your face, and you have to be like a hypocrite of the highest order. And yeah, so I think this is hypocrisy. And somebody, like way back 10 years back, he told me, Ajit, this Indian society or Hindu society, whichever way you want to look at it, is basically a bunch of hypocrites. And
Of course,
and
that's
it's
the
kind
truth.
of,
Yeah,
like, yeah,
that is the truth.
yeah, it's just a hypocrisy, like they sit there and imagine that here that guy Terry is telling them in their space, like, I can't stand behind what I said, you know, and then they keep him kind of still retweeting his space as if he's told them some truth. Amazing. Yeah, I think like, but yeah, hopefully, like like there is I'm hopeful. Um, I'm going to do more work. I didn't have enough time to kind of prepare the presentation well, but I did whatever I could. But really catch. I had very little time to listen to his other spaces, but I'm pretty sure I'll catch more live he has told, and I'm going to compile them into a one file, and hopefully CCs will find it useful sometime. Guys, do your job. Don't let foreign countries kind of interfere so blatantly into Canada or US. Uh, this is just like out plain in the open what they're doing. Anyways, thank you so much everybody for joining. I think we should then end the space. ਮਹਾਰਾਜ ਦਾ ਨਾਮ ਲੈਂਦੇ ਹੋਏ ਨਾਨਕ ਨਾਮ ਚੜ੍ਹਦੀ ਕਲਾ ਤੇਰੇ ਭਾਣੇ ਸਰਬੱਤ ਦਾ ਭਲਾ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਤੇ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ